Many behaviors humans describe as annoying, destructive, or defiant are actually emotionally meaningful communication attempts from cats. The content begins by challenging the common assumption that cats knock objects off tables simply because they are bored, mischievous, or seeking entertainment. In reality, these moments often function as emotional and environmental testing. Cats evolved as both predators and prey, which means their nervous systems are constantly evaluating safety, predictability, and emotional stability in the environment around them. When a cat slowly pushes an object toward the edge of a table while maintaining eye contact with the owner, the focus is often not the object itself, but the human reaction that follows. The cat is studying whether the person becomes loud, unpredictable, aggressive, or emotionally unstable during small moments of disruption. Calm responses communicate safety. Sudden anger or chaotic reactions communicate uncertainty. Over time, the cat builds an internal model of the owner's emotional reliability through these repeated interactions. The content frames this behavior as a subtle form of attachment assessment rather than misbehavior. Cats are not testing limits in the human sense. They are testing emotional predictability. A human who remains calm during small accidents becomes easier for the cat's nervous system to trust. The video also explains that scratching furniture is deeply misunderstood for similar reasons. Most owners see scratching as destruction of property, but for cats, it functions as territorial authorship and emotional mapping. Cats possess scent glands in their paw pads, and scratching deposits both visual and chemical markers into the environment. Importantly, cats rarely scratch random isolated objects. They target areas strongly connected to the owner's daily presence, such as couches, armchairs, bed frames, doorways, and pathways used constantly by the household. These locations carry layered human scent and social significance. By scratching there, the cat is blending their own identity into the emotional territory shared with the owner. The behavior becomes a declaration of belonging rather than rebellion. The content repeatedly emphasizes that many irritating feline behaviors are actually attachment behaviors expressed through instinctive survival systems. Cats communicate emotional trust, environmental safety, and social bonding through actions that humans often misunderstand because they do not resemble human affection. Underneath the inconvenience is often a cat attempting to understand, stabilize, and emotionally connect to the person they depend on most. One of the most misunderstood aspects of feline psychology is that deep trust often looks emotionally distant to humans. Many cat owners feel rejected when their cat does not rush to greet them, avoids eye contact after they return home, or calmly continues resting without obvious excitement. Human beings often associate love with visible enthusiasm, direct attention, and constant interaction, but cats communicate emotional security very differently. The content explains that in feline psychology, calmness and non-reactivity are frequently signs of profound trust rather than indifference. Cats are naturally hypervigilant animals whose survival systems constantly monitor movement, posture, sound, and potential danger. Around unfamiliar people, cats closely track body language, remain aware of exits, and maintain a heightened state of alertness. Their nervous systems stay active because uncertainty requires continuous threat assessment. Around deeply trusted humans, however, these systems begin to deactivate. A cat who calmly lies nearby without watching every movement is demonstrating that the environment feels emotionally safe enough for defensive monitoring to stop. The content emphasizes that cats do not perform affection in the same dramatic way many dogs do. Instead, they communicate attachment through nervous system relaxation and the absence of vigilance. A cat who slowly blinks, stretches comfortably, sleeps deeply, or continues grooming while the owner moves around the room is showing confidence that no threat exists. Emotional security allows the cat to disengage attention because constant monitoring no longer feels necessary. The video also explains that some owners unintentionally damage this trust by chasing interaction when the cat already feels safe. Repeatedly calling the cat, forcing attention, or interpreting calm independence as rejection misunderstands the emotional meaning of the behavior entirely. A secure cat often does not need to prove attachment constantly because the relationship already feels stable and reliable internally. the content frames this as one of the deepest compliments a cat can give. Feeling safe enough to ignore certain social monitoring behaviors means the cat trusts both the person and the environment completely. In feline emotional language, the absence of tension often communicates more attachment than visible excitement ever could. True trust appears not through dramatic displays, but through quiet nervous system regulation, emotional ease, and the ability to simply exist peacefully beside someone without fear, pressure, or constant awareness. Another major theme in the content is that many feline behaviors humans label as annoying, clingy, or inconvenient are actually highly intimate forms of social attachment communication. Excessive meowing, for example, is reframed not as manipulation or simple attention seeking, but as emotional load sharing directed toward a trusted human companion. Adult cats rarely vocalize extensively with one another in natural social settings. Most complex mewing behavior develops specifically in relationships with humans. Over time, cats create individualized vocal patterns shaped around the responses, routines, and emotional presence of the person they trust most. The content explains that increased vocalization often appears during emotionally uncertain moments, such as nighttime silence, household transitions, departures, or periods of environmental change. During these moments, the cat's nervous system seeks reassurance, stability, and emotional contact. Rather than demanding solutions, the cat is often attempting to maintain emotional connection through sound. A calm verbal response from the owner helps regulate this uncertainty by signaling continued presence and safety. The video also explores how biting behaviors are frequently misunderstood, because humans interpret them through aggression rather than feline social bonding systems. Gentle nipping and love bites are connected to allogrooming behavior observed between bonded cats. During social grooming, cats mix licking with small, soft bites as part of intimate tactile communication. When cats lightly bite humans during relaxed moments of affection, they are often extending this same bonding language toward the person they consider emotionally close. The content further explains that petting-induced overstimulation biting is not rejection or hostility. It occurs when a cat becomes so relaxed and neurologically open that physical stimulation eventually exceeds the nervous system's comfortable sensory threshold. A guarded or distrustful cat rarely allows itself to relax deeply enough to reach this point at all. In this way, overstimulation biting can paradoxically reflect emotional trust rather than emotional distance. Another important behavior discussed is path blocking and repeated positioning within the owner's physical routes through the home. Cats intentionally place themselves in doorways, hallways, staircases, or walking paths because space and proximity hold strong social meaning in feline psychology. Shared territory and overlapping movement patterns communicate attachment within cat social structures. By repeatedly orienting their bodies around the owner's movements, cats express a desire to remain physically integrated into the person's daily environment. The content frames these behaviors not as obstruction or inconvenience, but as quiet demonstrations of social closeness, territorial bonding, emotional regulation, and attachment expressed through the unique spatial language of cats. The fourth major idea in the content is that cats build emotional attachment not primarily through constant physical affection, but through predictable presence, shared territory, and repeated spatial connection inside the home. Cats pay extraordinary attention to the rhythms of human behavior. Over time, they memorize footsteps, schedules, daily movement patterns, sleeping routines, work habits, and even subtle differences in the sounds associated with specific activities. A cat often knows whether the owner is walking toward the kitchen, preparing to leave the house, or getting ready for bed simply from tiny changes in movement and sound. This level of observation reflects far more than curiosity. It represents long-term emotional orientation toward the person who functions as the emotional center of the cat's environment. The content explains that many behaviors humans interpret as obstructive or inconvenient are actually forms of territorial bonding. When cats repeatedly lie in doorways, hallways, staircases, or directly in the owner's walking path, They are intentionally positioning themselves inside the owner's daily orbit. In feline social systems, space is deeply connected to relationships. Cats who share pathways, resting zones, and overlapping movement areas are signaling trust and social connection. Physical proximity itself becomes a declaration of emotional attachment. Rather than seeking constant direct interaction, cats often prefer quiet integration into the owner's environment. The cat lying in the hallway while the owner moves through the house is not accidentally in the way. The cat is choosing to remain connected to the flow of the owner's presence and activity. The video emphasizes that cats understand relationships spatially as much as emotionally. Shared territory acts as a living map of social bonds. A cat who repeatedly rests near commonly used spaces is embedding itself into the emotional geography of the household. These behaviors also demonstrate how closely cats track human predictability. They learn which routes are used most often, which rooms hold emotional importance, and which daily routines signal connection or separation. Even seemingly random positioning choices are frequently deliberate attempts to remain near the owner's physical and emotional presence without demanding direct attention. The content ultimately frames feline attachment as something expressed through quiet coexistence, territorial overlap, routine observation, and consistent environmental closeness, rather than overt displays of affection. The final major idea in the content explores how strongly bonded cats experience emotional disruption during separation and intense emotional release during reunion. Many owners misinterpret clinginess, vocalization, destructive behavior, or excessive attachment after returning home as manipulation, revenge, or attention-seeking. The content argues that these behaviors are actually expressions of attachment anxiety and nervous system dysregulation caused by temporary separation from an emotionally important figure. Research on feline attachment shows that even securely bonded cats experience measurable stress responses when separated from their owners, because the owner functions as a major source of emotional regulation and environmental stability. During the owner's absence, the cat's nervous system often shifts into a state of heightened vigilance. The cat becomes more aware of sounds, environmental changes, and potential uncertainty because the familiar emotional anchor of the household is temporarily gone. Even when the cat appears calm externally, underlying physiological stress may remain elevated. The content explains that cats do not process reunion instantly once the owner returns. The emotional tension accumulated during separation often spills outward through intense behaviors that humans misunderstand. Some cats follow the owner constantly from room to room, vocalize repeatedly, climb onto the owner excessively, or demand uninterrupted proximity. Others release the emotional overload through scratching furniture, knocking objects over, rough affection, overexcited biting, or restless pacing. These reactions are not punishment for leaving. They are attempts to reconnect emotionally, verify safety, and stabilize the attachment bond again through physical closeness and sensory confirmation. The content also emphasizes that reunion stress can create conflicting behaviors simultaneously. A cat may seek intense contact one moment and appear overstimulated or agitated the next, because the nervous system is still regulating itself after prolonged emotional suspension. Smell, touch, voice, and shared physical space all help restore the cat's internal sense of safety. The video encourages owners not to punish these reunion behaviors immediately, but instead to understand the emotional state underneath them. Calm presence, predictable routines, gentle interaction, and allowing the cat time to complete its reunion rituals help the nervous system settle naturally. Ultimately, the content frames many misunderstood cat behaviors as deeply emotional forms of attachment communication. Beneath the scratching, mewing, following, knocking, or clinginess is often a cat attempting to restore connection, reassurance, and emotional safety using the only behavioral language available to its species.